I'm just waiting for this to turn on so we can go live. There we go.
Okie
All
dokie.
right, we are live. I am so
Live.
to be back. So this is our Truth Be Told podcast, and it's been so busy. It's been a really busy season for, just all of the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I'm just glad we could make the time to get together today so we can talk about retinols,
Yeah.
huge topic. Ben, this is one of the most talked about ingredients, and I think one of the most popular ingredients for anti-aging and for acne, but it is also wildly misunderstood. There are so many different forms of vitamin A, and we're using prescription tretinoin, and people are scared of retinol, or they don't know about it, or they've had bad experiences with it. So I would love for us to dive into everything there is to know about the truth.
Okie dokie. Well, retinol to a pharmacist is the holy grail. We study it in pharmacy school. Retinol is vitamin A, technically, or precursor to vitamin A. Um, and then retinoic acid, retinoic acid is active vitamin A. Retinol gets turned into active vitamin A. Active vitamin A or retinoic acid is a very powerful molecule. It's used as chemotherapy for lung cancer. It's got tremendous skin effects or skin benefits. It's a go-to for acne. It's a go-to for anti-aging. It's a go-to for skin lightening. It's a great ingredient. It does require a prescription. You got to deal with insurance companies and pharmacies, etc. I like retinol. Retinol is converted into retinoic acid, but you don't need a prescription for it. You can get it over the counter. Unfortunately, if you're not using Truth, you're not going to get a very strong version of retinol because drug company or skincare companies, they are very scared of ingredients that are stimulating, and retinol is very stimulating. However, if a formulation is designed correctly, you can get a high concentration of retinol in there without having to run into too much irritation or inflammation. And that's what we specialize in. That's what I specialize in my formulations. In medicine, we say, or in pharmacy, we say the dose makes the medicine. In other words, a medicine is only going to be as powerful as its dose. It has to have an effective dose. And the effective dose of retinol is much higher than the retinol that's contained in most skincare products because most skincare companies don't really want to give you an effective dose because they're afraid of having problems. If they knew how to formulate correctly, they won't have to worry about it. And that's what we do at Truth. So we have a 5% retinol gel, 5%, which is crazy, unheard of in the
It's
business,
crazy.
right? People think it's a typo, and it's our best selling product. And then we have an even better 5%, which is the retinol serum, which I like better, actually. Our Rejuvenate,
Resurface.
Resurfix.
Yeah. And I want to dive
5%.
into like the difference between those formulations, but you're talking about like an appropriate dose. So what
Yes.
percentage of retinol is going to be effective?
You need to have at least 1%, but 5% really, I like mine to be 5%. In fact, I use a 15% once or twice a month on myself, and I use a 5% 3 or 4 times a week. We have people use the 5% every day. I think you should take days off from retinol because you want the recovery to, a lot of the benefits to retinol application are in the recovery,
So
the
we're
increased
talking about
collagen,
the anabolic
the
process,
building.
right?
Yes, exactly. It's
Can you
anabolism, just
dive
like when
into
you,
that a little bit?
yes, anabolism or growth of tissue doesn't occur when it's being stimulated. It occurs when it's being rested. The stimulation activates it. You need stimulation. You got to go to the gym, but the tissue doesn't grow until the next day when you're not at the gym. Likewise with the skin. You need to activate the skin. If you're interested in growing tissue, you want to activate the skin cells. I say the skin, I mean the skin cells and the fibroblasts, the keratinocytes and the fibroblasts. You want to activate them, but you want to then stop activating them so that they can recover. It's in the recovery. Anabolism occurs in the recovery phase. The
Right.
recovery is what you're trying to maximize. So you activate, and then you want to maximize the recovery phase. For some people, the recovery phase may be a day. For other people, it's 2 or 3 or 4 days. You don't want to overtrain. You don't want to overstimulate. You don't want to use it too much. You want to make sure you're maximizing the rest period with periodic activations. And it's not rocket science. Look, it's not that hard to understand, but that's why we have estheticians.
And this is
Estheticians are
something that the anabolic process isn't really talked a whole lot about, in even in the
that's
esthetician
yeah,
world.
that is unfortunate how estheticians are not trained correctly, and that is a thing. In fact, I'm going to teach a class today, and I do teach classes because unfortunately, the skincare business or the esthetician business is a derivative or an extension of the skincare business, and the skincare business is based on marketing principles, as we've talked about before, that were first developed and elucidated by Helena Rubinstein and S.D. Lauder and Elizabeth Arden, who unfortunately knew nothing about skin. Nothing. Elizabeth Arden didn't know about skin, nor Helena Rubinstein, nor S.D. Lauder. They just knew how to market, and they were great. They're great marketers. But today's consumer deserves more than marketing, and today's esthetician wants to be more than a marketer,
Right.
understandably. And so to take care of the health of the tissue is it requires a biochemical understanding or a biological understanding that estheticians don't get in school. And a lot of that has to do with anabolism or building. And like you said, that's not something estheticians are typically trained in. Luckily, the body is designed to build. So you don't really have to do too much. You just got to stimulate and feed and rest. I call it exerrest. You
Mhm.
exercise and you rest and then you nutriate. And that's
So
really all you need to do to grow muscles if you want to go to the gym and be strong, or to grow brain cells if you want to be really smart, or to grow connective tissue if you have arthritis, or to prevent wrinkles and have beautiful skin if you want to address the integument or the body's the cutaneous system.
that's great. Yeah. So if you are suggesting a retinol, say a 1% or a 5%,
Start
how
one, work your
determine
way up to start one, work your way up to five. I never start anybody off at five unless they're experienced with retinol. By the way, vitamin A, I call vitamin A vitamin anabolic because it's one of its main roles is to support cell division and support cell growth. Vitamin A also is involved in the production of connective tissue from the fibroblast, so it's important for wrinkles. Vitamin A also has mitochondrial support properties. Vitamin A also helps stabilize the movement of cells from the bottom to the top. That's called differentiation. As cells take on different shapes, they grow from the bottom to the top. Vitamin A normalizes that, and that's why it's used for treat acne. It's also a skin lightener. It has two mechanisms, has a couple of mechanisms. One mechanism is it inhibits the enzyme that is used to make melanin. It also helps activate or I'm sorry, helps exfoliate the skin, exfoliate pigment, and it also has a genetic effect. It also acts to lighten the skin at the genetic level. So it's an anti-hyperpigmenting agent, anti-skin light, or it's a skin lightener. It's anti-acne. It stimulates the growth of connective tissue fibers like collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid as well for building a healthy dermis and preventing wrinkles and fine lines. It's got an interesting property because retinol is so stimulating and it kind of moves everything up. It's great for people who suffer from a mosquito bite or a spider bite or a
Mhm.
bee sting, or even if they have a splinter. If you have a splinter, it'll help pull the splinter out. So it's just got so many wonderful, wonderful properties. Plus, on top of everything else, if you're deficient in vitamin A, you can actually load up on vitamin A topically by putting it on your skin. In other words, your skin cells will store the vitamin A that you use topically. So it's got topical benefits. And also, by the way, it works perfectly well with vitamin C, which is something that, you know,
This is a
it
huge one
flies right.
because
There's
everybody, I mean, it's not everybody, but there's a lot of conversation about vitamin A and vitamin C don't work well
They
together.
work perfectly well together. That's silliness. Anybody who understands chemistry would know that. Ascorbic acid, which is the cheapo form of vitamin C, that will break down in the presence of retinol and it will accelerate the breakdown of retinol. So it's true that you don't want ascorbic acid with retinol, but THDA, fat soluble vitamin C, and retinol work perfectly well together. They're a perfect pair.
And would you say that that's one of the reasons our retinol products are so powerful, but
Because they have, that's right. That's one of the main reasons is the vitamin A works synergistically to get you benefits, plus it mitigates the inflammation that
right,
the inherent inflammation that it can cause. There's also fake versions of vitamin A. I call them fake because they're not really vitamin A. Bakuchiol is the most famous one. You probably heard of bakuchiol. The guy who was formulating, who just he formulated it, brought it to market, is a friend of mine, and he'd been trying to get me to use this stuff for decades. I met him in the 90s. He just sold it to another company, I think maybe last year or the year before. So he had it for 27, almost 30 years. And he was, every time I met him, he said, you got to use bakuchiol. And it doesn't even come close.
So what were his claims? Why was he
He
so?
says it's a retinol, because retinol has this kind of fear factor that's associated with it. So companies are looking for plant retinoids. I'll explain what I mean here in a minute. Plant retinoids that they can use so they don't have to deal with the fear factor. But if
Right.
you formulate it correctly, you're going to get great benefits. And just like with great power comes great responsibility, with great potency comes great benefits, but you got to be a little bit careful. Fine, formulate it correctly. Retinoids are a family that include vitamin A, retinol, and retinoic acid. But retinoids refers to a bunch of molecules that are found throughout nature. They're found in rosehip oil, for example, carrot seed oil. Bakuchiol is found in something called the babachi plant, which grows in India. So these molecules like bakuchiol and the molecules in rosehip oil and carrot seed oil, they're not exactly vitamin A. They're similar. They're close. But vitamin A is only found in animal products. It's an animal vitamin. So everything else is fake with the exception of beta carotene. Beta carotene can be converted into vitamin A. That's a plant retinoid. And it can be converted if you have all the right chemistry, which most people don't. You can convert it into vitamin A. So if you want vitamin A effects, go with vitamin A. Bakuchiol is fake. Carrot seed oil, rosehip oil, sea buckthorn oil. There's a bunch of things that have retinoids in them. But the real deal is retinol and retinoic acid. Even retinaldehyde is kind of a scammy one too.
I was
Retinol
just going to ask
palmitate.
about that one.
Retinaldehyde is scammy. I'll tell you why. Retinaldehyde is not in your skin. Retinol's in your skin. Retinol palmitate's in your skin. Retinaldehyde is mostly in your eyes because retinaldehyde is very, very unstable, and that instability is very important for the eyes. In the eyes, the instability of retinaldehyde allows it to convert light energy into chemical energy. So the light energy is converted into chemical energy by virtue of the instability of the retinaldehyde molecule, which is great for the eyes. It helps you see, but it's not good for the skin. Not only that, but retinaldehyde is so hard to work with and breaks down so quickly, it's not in products in very high concentrations. In fact, they don't even tell you how much is in there. They're embarrassed. It's like
Right.
0.01 or 0.1 or 0.2% usually. It's a small fraction of, and actually I shouldn't say because I don't know. But the problem with retinaldehyde is it has to be protected in a bubble because it's so unstable, and it's hard to get a lot of retinaldehyde in the bubble. It's just not in the
I've
same
seen
league as
that.
retinol. It's not.
Encapsulated
It's
retinol.
encapsulated.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's not. It's nowhere near the same league as retinol. Retinol is the bomb, and retinoic acid if you want to get a prescription. But I like retinol better.
And
And then
maybe this might be true, might not. Retinol being in the form of retinol, it has to go through a natural conversion process in the skin to turn into the retinoic acid. What
yes,
is that process?
it's chemistry. It's enzymes. There are
So,
enzymes in the skin that convert retinol into retinoic acid.
okay. And
It's
so
chemistry.
it's retinol and then it's converted right into retinoic acid.
There's retinaldehyde is a step in the middle,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons, by the way, people will say, oh, well, retinaldehyde is more effective because it's in the middle. Not true. It goes back and forth all the time. So retinol goes to retinoic acid, goes back to retinol. It's constantly moving back and forth. So it's not like you get an advantage because it's closer to retinoic acid. That's what the marketers will tell you. That's not true. It
Okay.
goes back and forth. In fact, the instability of retinaldehyde is really the big problem with retinaldehyde, and that's why you can't use. There's not a lot of retinaldehyde in skincare products. There's no getting around. Retinol is the best OTC, over the counter, and retinoic acid is the active form if you want to deal with a prescription.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't been able to use a retinol because any retinol that I've ever tried has been very irritating for me, which did scare me away from using it until, it was Truth Treatment Systems. Carrie was like, Monique, you need to try this retinol. I promise you're not going to have a problem. You're
Yeah.
not going to have a reaction. And
Right.
so that at that time, it was the gel that I had started with, and it's still my favorite.
Yeah. More than the serum.
Just because of the texture, I prefer that gel balmy consistency over the serum. But
Got it.
what's great about the serum is it does have the vitamin E, there's squalene, there's fullerenes, all these extra buffers. So can
That's
you
right.
share more about why we created the serum formulation?
Right. The serum is designed for people who want a high concentration of retinol and don't want to have to deal with any of the downside. So I put everything I could think of in there to mitigate the irritation, inflammation, and that makes it very, very mild, but it's still high concentration retinol. And I like the serum better personally. I like the way it feels better. I don't know. It's kind of personal preference. Everybody's got their own
Yeah.
opinion. Both have 25% vitamin C, um, fat soluble vitamin C. But in the serum, I put fullerenes. I put some plant derived steroids in there, beta cytosterol, and then there's other vitamins in there as well. So it's a more well-rounded product. It's a little pricier, but it lasts longer. It's more stable. The retinol gel breaks down after about a year. The serum is much more stable, and I just think the serum is a better product personally. I like it better. Put it that way.
The formulation just
Yeah, I
all
like the formula.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, with the retinols and having those buffers in there, how important is it that the barrier is strong before?
Yes, that's an interesting point because much of the sensitivity associated with retinol is associated with a weak or fragile skin barrier.
Mhm.
But retinol is important for strengthening the barrier. So you have this kind of catch-22. You
Right.
need retinol for the barrier, but retinol can irritate the skin if the barrier is not strong. So what I tell people is start off slowly.
Mhm.
Build the barrier so that you can use more retinol. It's kind of like when you're lifting weights. You don't go lay down on the bench and start lifting 300 pounds. You kill yourself.
Right.
But if you want to get to the point where you can build 300 pounds, where your muscles are strong enough to handle the 300 pounds, and you do that by starting off with 100 pounds or 80 pounds, and then gradually working yourself up so that your muscles get strong enough to lift the 300 pounds. Same with the skin. Most people are going to have a fragile barrier unless they're very young. As we age, just if you don't know how to take care of your skin, which most of us don't, you're going to have a fragile barrier. But you need retinol to build the barrier. So use retinol slowly and at a lower dose or concentration and work yourself up and work yourself into higher frequency.
Yeah, I like to always recommend, especially with the gels, that if you're brand new to it, that you start with just 1 day a week at night and then build yourself up to 2 to 3, just paying attention to how the skin is responding. But how would you determine what to recommend as far as how many days should go in between your applications?
There's no way to know. You have to go by your skin. You want to go by the irritation or inflammation on the skin. So you don't want to have angry skin. You want it stimulated, but you don't want it irritated. And that's a cutoff. There's a sweet spot. There's a
Mhm.
Goldilocks principle, not too hot, not too cold, not too sweet, not too sour, right in the middle. And that's why it really helps to have an esthetician to start off. If you really understand your skin, you don't necessarily need an esthetician, but most people it would do well to have an esthetician put them on a program and then go back to that esthetician so she can assess how well you're doing and modify the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my personal experience, of course, I loved how my skin felt immediately the next day. And
Yeah,
so, of course, I went and did another dose of the 1% gel the
too
following
much,
day. And
too
so I
much.
got a little bit of peeling, not irritation or erythema or anything like that, but just a little bit of flaking,
It's
3
a
or
great
4 days
pill.
later.
It's a
So
great pill.
yeah, why
There's a
why
couple.
experience
Yeah,
that
yeah.
flakiness?
I'll tell you that in a second. But before I tell you that, um, retinol can be used in multiple ways. You can use it to spot treat a blemish or a blemish that's about to happen. In fact, we have a product we call a retinol spot treatment, and you put it on the blemish, and you'll gradually exfoliate. It has exfoliating properties. That's what you're describing here. You'll
Yes.
gradually exfoliate the surface of that blemish. You won't get the blemish. So it can be used topically to spot treat. It's the best skin lightener going, in my opinion, better than hydroquinone because you don't get toxicity associated with it. So you can spot treat with your retinol spot treatment or any retinol on dark spots. Retinol is also great for hard skin on the feet, on the like your heels, the bottom of your feet, or the butt, or anywhere where you have elbows, knees, and we have hard, dry skin. And that makes our infused body spray, our retinol body Rejuvenex body, the Revive Body Elixir with the infused so wonderful. And we should be selling a lot of that stuff. That is probably, if not my most incredible formulation, it's one of the most incredible formulations. It's got the retinol in there, and then it has vitamin C in there, and then it has mandelic acid in there, and it has salicylic acid. I used to call it ABC body serum because it had vitamin A in it and alpha hydroxy acids in it. It had beta hydroxy acids in it and vitamin C. ABC body serum. It also has other vitamins in there as well. So you call it ABCDE body serum if you want, but we called it Revive Body Elixir. The pictures that we're getting on the Revive, we got one
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is stuff that, where myself personally, even just considering a tummy tuck because of the loose skin, the poor elasticity and the stretching from my
Right,
pregnancy. And now
right.
with all of the weight loss craze and the GLP-1 medications and everything like that, people who are rapidly losing weight are experiencing that poor elasticity. And it's really exciting to see the results that we're getting with the Revive.
It's it's amazing. In fact, that one picture, I hope we got a card. Did we get the card on that picture?
We will have a card. We don't have a
Good.
card just yet, but we
Okay.
absolutely
We
will.
need
And
that
I'm
we
going
need
to
card
post
on that.
it on my Instagram and I'll post it on my
Post it.
Facebook so that
Yeah.
whoever's watching this call can actually see that image. It's incredible. And I did
Great.
a before picture for myself. I'm like 2.5, 3 weeks in of using it on myself personally. So I'm excited
Nice.
to see the results that we get from that. But you had mentioned the BHAs with the retinol, which is also our
BHA,
treatment.
the beta hydroxy acid?
Yeah, so we have
Yes.
salicylic in the spot treatment. What is
Yes.
the benefit of having the salicylic and the retinol together in a
Together,
formulation?
couple benefits. First of all, the salicylic will help the retinol work better. You'll get better penetration of the retinol with the salicylic. So retinol penetrate pretty good anyway, but when you add salicylic, it penetrates even better. And it's always going to be about the penetration. Everything's about penetration. You want it to get through the stratum corneum. And
Right.
then you get a double exfoliating effect. Then you get a double anti-acne effect and a double skin lightening effect. You get skin lightening from the salicylic and skin lightening from the retinol, and you get an anti-acne effect from the salicylic because salicylic kills bacteria and exfoliates the skin, and you get the retinol benefits for differentiation for how skin cells divide. The most important sign or cause of an acne blemish is rapid division of the corneocyte, the keratinocytes and the corneocytes in a pore. Retinol stabilizes all that. So you get double benefits. And I'm always looking, when I'm formulating a product, I'm always looking to approach the problem from different angles.
Right.
So I always like to put different ingredients that will have different effects on the blemish or on the hyperpigmentation or on whatever I'm trying to accomplish. So you approach it from different angles. Retinol, salicylic approach blemishes and skin lightening from different angles. And that's why I put them both in there. There's also in the retinol spot treatment, I also think I put one more thing in there. I think it's vitamin E that's in there as well. And vitamin E is an antioxidant. So that has the anti-sebum properties. So it's nice to have different ingredients that approach the problem, different active ingredients that approach the problem from different angles.
Yeah, and I would really love to learn more about the fullerenes, the C60.
Fullerenes are super cool. Fullerenes, if you look at them under a microscope or if you look at them online under Google Images, for example, you'll see it looks like a bubble or like a soccer ball. And it's a really cool soccer ball with 60 sides. 60 sides. Can you imagine a soccer ball with
That's wild.
It's wild, right? That's what they call C60. Um, that soccer ball shape has several interesting properties. Number one, it makes the fullerene molecule an incredibly valuable antioxidant, one of nature's best. And that means it stabilizes oxidation of fats, particularly sebum. And then also, the soccer ball shape lends itself to carrying things, it has a hollow center. And other ingredients like retinol can fit themselves into that hollow center and they'll get delivered. So you got an antioxidant, you've got a delivery aid in the fullerenes, and they enhance any formula you're using. They make any formula you're using better.
Wow. Yeah. It's so cool. I know it's up and coming, right? It's one of
It
those
is up and coming.
ingredients.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's,
gonna probably blow up in the next 10 years or so.
yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so
Exactly.
rosacea is a huge topic. I have
Okay.
questions about that all the
I
time.
actually just wrote a white paper on rosacea. If anybody wants a copy, they should. Do we have people on this call? Is
Yeah,
anybody
I hope
live?
so.
You can't. You don't know. You can't
I
tell.
don't know, but,
Okay.
even if they're not live, I can always see
Okay.
how many people attended afterwards, so
Okay. Good. Well, I have a white paper I just did on rosacea. The most important thing to know about rosacea is it's a blood condition. It's not a skin condition. It shows up on the skin, and
right.
in that way, it's a skin condition, but you can't treat it by treating the skin. You got to treat the blood. And that's why anybody who has rosacea knows that there's certain foods that make the rosacea worse. Why is that? Because the foods get in the blood and they initiate an immune response. Rosacea is an immune response in the lymph and in the blood. And so you really have to deal with it from an immune perspective, which means foods. That's the most important thing you can do. Now,
Yeah.
topically, there are things that you can do for sure, but you're not going to really solve the problem permanently unless you get into the blood. And I write about all this in a white paper. If you're interested,
Yeah,
just send
absolutely.
Monique a text and we'll get it out to you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like those were all of my really
Okay.
pressing
Well,
questions.
if anybody out there has questions about retinol, about our Revive body elixir, or about how you use any of our retinol products, or if you want a copy of our rosacea white paper, send Monique a note and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, my email is monique@truthtreatmentsystems.com. I also have in all of my social media bios links to our professional website and how to purchase the product online. But the best thing to do would be just to contact me directly, send me a message. This way I can really get to know your skin a little bit better and make some
Right.
appropriate recommendations for you. But Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very nice to see you as always. And can't wait till we do our next one. And then if there's any questions specifically for me, just pass them on. But Monique can answer pretty much anything that has to do with our treat products.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Monique.
Ben. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Okay, bye.